few years ago, me and him have a conversation. All the things that he was telling me as a child, I still had it in here. I just had it in the storage. So once I started going and digging, I started getting the insight like, hey, everything that my father told me as a child, as my youth, now I'm doing today. Now I'm being who I am and no longer that creation of who the streets want. Okay, so the abandonment started in 1992. My family had separated due to they were still young, still in their 20s, and they started having addictions. You know, the drugs that started getting flooded into Los Angeles County. So they started partaking, and as they was partaking, I guess they wanted to party. They separated, went their own ways. I was left with family members, and even though my family members was there and they showed different ways of love, but it's nothing like having that parent there. You know, that experience from the time I was 1 until 7, it was different from having family members, you know, because you see the way that they look at their kids and the different types of ways they try to help their kids out. You feel like nobody's actually paying you that same attention. So, well, me and some of my relatives would hang out. Their mothers and fathers would come and pick them up. I would get asked, "Hey, you want to go home or you want to hang out?" Their kids didn't get the same option. It was get in the car, let's go. So I started feeling like that's right. Everything that I believed in, it was right that they didn't love me. I felt abandoned when they took off for me to have an option. I felt like, hey, I should be one of the ones that you say, hey, get in the car, let's leave. Instead, it left me in a gang environment to where I started spending the nights over there. I didn't have a curfew. Only time I had a curfew was when the social workers would be coming to the house. You know, paycheck gotta come, so you gotta be at the house so we can collect. After that, you can do what you want. So that's when I started realizing that I wasn't treated the same. It was like some inequality. So the gangs kind of made up for it because I guess my brain wasn't all the way developed. I was still young, and by my brain not being developed, I perceived these as my real family, and my bloodline. They was just like they was there, but it wasn't the same no more. So now when somebody asks me, hey, you want to do this? This is a family. We're going to do this together. So having an adopted family, I started feeling like I was accepted, I was wanted, I was loved. And after a while, you know, getting called certain things, you know, it's like, hey, that's me. So I started creating another identity. So by me creating another identity, I kind of like lost who I was. So once I lost who I was, I just pretty much spiraled out of control. And I don't even realize when it actually took place that I lost myself. You know, who I was. I'm talking about Kevin, not the moniker. So I would say being in here, reading books, being around people that's been incarcerated for decades, I look at them like I don't want to be another person that's been sitting down 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years incarcerated because my whole family would be gone if I do 40 years in prison. The whole family that I knew would be gone. So now I'm doing things to better myself, stay in tune with who I am, the Kevin, not the moniker.
Can I ask you what's the feeling you struggle with the most as a child?
The feeling I struggled with the most as a child was, I would say, the not knowing, like, will my parents ever come back? Is this lifestyle gonna stay the same? Because I started seeing the flaws in the gang lifestyle. I started seeing the flaws, but since it's a family, sometimes you like put the blockers on. You don't want to see certain things. So I feel like my my family, that was my bloodline, that I didn't know the outcome. I never knew what would be the real outcome of my life because of that not caring for me. So that was like one of my struggles right there.
How do you stay like bright in an environment like bright meaning light shining? How do you stay bright in an environment like this where it's like kind of survival?
I would say it all starts from the inside. Once I started looking in the mirror and I asked myself, why do you drink? Because I was an alcoholic, a functional alcoholic. And then I told myself, like, I drink because of all these outside things. So one day I was in the midst of me drinking. I told myself, hey, this is my last time drinking. So since, I want to say 2018, October 20th was the last time I took a drink. I was incarcerated. Being around alcohol, it still don't influence me to go backwards. So that was the first part of me and my change, loving myself. So once I started loving myself, I started looking at others like, this is my brother. Even though we're incarcerated, we're still all the same. We come from the same type of situations, maybe a little bit different because of the culture and then the environment that we're from or the cities, the county. But overall, we're all pretty much the same. So
That part. Okay, I got a couple follow up, but like, what do you think people don't understand about alcoholism?
people don't understand that alcohol, I guess you start becoming so dependent on it that you don't see anything else. I didn't see the damage that I was putting on my own body. Having to go to the stores, 2 o'clock in the morning, rushing before they close. Like, but I'm not seeing that I'm alcoholic. I'm seeing that other people are alcoholics. I'm seeing that I just want to drink. But the problem came that I didn't want this to start going to the kids that I have or my friends and other family members. I don't want them to be drinking. So I think that they don't know that the way that it tear families apart because you want to drink more than anything else.
What's the feeling you struggle with the most in here?
Dying in prison. That's like, even though I got a 30-year sentence, when I look at it, I say, man, if I die in here, that life sentence will be complete. That will be the real thing that they got of me, a life sentence. So to try to combat that, I do everything in my power to better myself, whether that be through association with certain individuals in here that's on that path. That'd be through different books that I have sent in. That'd be through watching certain television shows and going to any self-help group that they have to offer. It's not very many. And those right there help me to stay on the right path. So that way I don't look backwards and I just continue forward.
Yeah. Do people keep in touch with you in here? Do you have people from the outside keeping in touch?
I got people that I call periodically.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes it's like, you feel like I don't want to call anybody. Sometimes you feel like, you've been locked up so long that sometimes you may feel like you're like a burden to certain people, and your mind get to playing tricks on you to where it's like, I'm gonna leave people alone and let them have their peace. I know I have my peace, but people go through struggles out there, and I understand that everybody's not reading books. Everybody's not connected. They got social media outlets that's tainting their minds. By their minds being tainted, when you try to show them a new way, they don't feel you understand, and they put that you're incarcerated, you don't understand.
I kind of want to ask you, like, if there's one thing that you could tell your younger self, like, what would you tell them?
When looking to the streets, I would look for other outlets, some kind of schooling, some elder, but I would have to look for somebody that's doing what they're saying, and not somebody that's just saying, hey, don't do this and don't do that, but they're hanging out on the street corner with me, because a lot of that stuff goes out the window because you're looking at it like they're contradicting everything that they say. Now, if I see somebody going to school every day, they're going to work every day, they're taking care of their household, taking care of their kids, then that's somebody I want to be around. And that's somebody I can look up to and say, hey, this is a friend. I can go to this person for guidance. Having somebody like that in my life as a young child now, I think that would have more impact on my life than the streets ever did.
Having someone who did it, lived what they said, and was a good influence. What do you? So I'm gonna rephrase that question then. Like, what do you think you needed or would have helped you as a kid?
I feel I needed somebody that was like more, I guess, more firm in their convictions. Somebody that displayed love and didn't just say, hey, I love you, you know, because after a while, my mother and father, they did eventually getting back together when I was 15. I ended up going back to live with them, but it's like I was already so caught up in the lifestyle. Now I'm already getting incarcerated.
Just too far gone at
You know,
that point.
even though my father, I seen him working every day, his eyes red for working so many hours, going to sleep for a few hours, and he's back at it. I admired it, but I didn't know how to take that on, because as a gang, I didn't know how to separate it. So I stayed stuck, caught up in what I was doing. Fast forward a few years ago, me and him have a conversation. All the things that he was telling me as a child, I still had it in here. I just had it in the storage. So once I started going and digging, I started getting the insight like, hey, everything that my father told me as a child, as my youth, now I'm doing today. Now I'm being who I am and no longer that creation of who the streets want. I feel good about myself. So I would say to that younger kid to be patient. You don't have to move too fast, and find somebody that's stable. Find somebody who's showing that they love you. Find that person who's not using alcohol, who's not exploiting women, someone who's not using drugs, somebody who's not in the gang, somebody that's doing anything positive, whether that be church, just going to work, just being a productive citizen in society. That's somebody that I would tell myself back then to follow.
You can. I ask these questions, and I would probably have to really think about them for like 5 minutes before I answer. So, also, if you need time to think about, because this one I would probably, but it's what's one rule that you live by?
One rule that I live by is there's always room for growth. I'm never confined to a box. Even so now with the time on paper, it says a lot. In my heart, I don't feel that way. I feel like I'm mentally I'm free, but they have me in bondage physically. So the rule that I live by is there's always room for growth, and if somebody else can do it, I can do it. As long as I put the work in.
What is freedom to you when you say I'm in bondage physically, but mentally I'm free?
Mentally I'm free is, I would say, all the pain that I thought I had, all the anxiety, all the thoughts of maybe not being able to make it, all of that has passed away. And since that stuff passed away, now I'm content with where I am, not in prison, but where I am in life. And I have a lot of freedom in that. The reason why I have a lot of freedom is because nobody can no longer tell me, hey, let's do this, or it's a we, or it's a us. No, I'm responsible for self. So since I'm responsible for self, I have to make choices for myself. So the freedom and me being able to make my own choice and live with it, I say that's all the freedom that I need right there.
That part.
Just a question I had. You were talking about how you lost yourself, and it was kind of like too far gone to the point where you didn't recognize yourself. What was that process? Because it's beautiful to see where your mindset's at now and how you flipped around. But what was that journey to find yourself again? And how difficult was it to find yourself again?
To find myself, I use something like this in a cell. I keep this, and I will write. Sometimes it'd be some ugly letters, some things that you don't even want to talk about, some things you don't want to revisit, some hurt that you call somebody else, some hurt that somebody calls you. Now, being able to go face on with these things, it started becoming beautiful after a while. Like, I went through that, not knowing that this thing that I thought was a struggle helped me go through something else that was a little bit bigger. So now I'm starting to look at everything that I'm going through in life. They're not they're struggles at that time. They might be afflictions to the wound, but ultimately they help me get over another hurdle. Without me being able to go through whatever struggle I'm going through, who's to say that I will survive to go through the next hurdle? So I say it's beautiful. It's like once you're going through it, you don't see it. But afterwards, it's like, how was I able to go through that? But when you look back and you look at your notes, it's like, it was beautiful that everything that I went through, it had a cause and it serves its purpose. And now when you look at something else, you sit down and you meditate, it's like, I've been through something similar. How did I get through that? Because that was ugly. You go through your notes, now it's like, here go the story begins again, another process, and you're able to do it again. And that's how I end up overcoming the struggles from the past. But the only way for me to do it is I have to go back in order to go forward.
Was it hard for you to go back and revisit some of those?
I think the hard part was some of the things that I guess you feel like you forget. But when I would be in meditation, some of those things would just pop to my head, and I'd be like, "Where did that come from?" I'm not understanding on where it just popped up. So now when I start dwelling on it, I'm like, "Oh, I hurt this person," even though it made it seem like the smallest thing that you have did, and you realize the bigger impact that it could have had on somebody else's life, and how they could have passed it on to others, and they could have just trickled down. So when I look at these things, it's like, hey, keep going back, revisit everything. Anything that's up in the storage, bring it back to life. So now once I bring it back to life, I can share with somebody else on how I was able to manage certain obstacles and live with whatever decisions I made. And that's what make it so lovely. It's lovely to do that.
I think that's awesome. Because I think a lot of people are afraid to go back in their past and dig up the things that they're not proud of, and that's not pretty. But like you said, there is a lot of beauty in the ugliness. You just have to get through the ugliness to see the beauty of it. But that's really awesome.
Okay, I wanted to ask this and think about this too. But if you had just one message to the world, or like kids, your family, anyone who might be listening, what would that be?
Somebody get a hand in that boy's face.
I would say drugs is a horrible thing. Tear apart families.
1 minute.
A lot of people don't make it, especially when they're using harder drugs. Stay focused. Get in something that you enjoy. Don't live the life that somebody else wants you to live, but create a path for yourself. Once you start living for self and you create your own outcome, any mistakes that you feel like you made, at least you made them. And they're not somebody else's flaws or somebody else's thoughts or somebody else's passion. Live out your own dreams. You'll never know where you'll make it in life. And I would say, love yourself, protect yourself, stay vigilant, and be kind to others.
I told you that was the last one, but last one, and that's powerful, man. Like, you're bright, and you're a gift. Like, you're a literal gift to this planet. So please remember that. And it's something I wouldn't know about you by looking at you.
15 seconds.
Something you wouldn't know about me is
13.
I would say
11.
I like to give.
10. 9.
Being incarcerated, I guess the blues make it like, oh, this person is a monster. This person, you know, may have all different types of stigma simply from the color, maybe from the look. But one thing, okay, I smile a lot, so you'll know that. But another thing you won't know about me by looking at me is that I'm always willing to help another individual. It don't matter about the race, the creed, the background. None of that stuff matters. The only thing that matters is it's another human being. It has a heartbeat. They breathe the same air that I breathe. Different perception, but sometimes we may be looking at the same thing, have different sensations, but we're still beautiful beings. If we was born into this world, it's meant for us to be in harmony together. And I would say that's one thing you may not know about me, that I like to spread love and to encourage others, sometimes more than I encourage myself, because I know that the power of giving somebody love, that they can pass that love on to a whole lot of other people. And I'm hoping that one day the love that I pass on to other people, that it's able to spread throughout the globe.
It's inevitable. It will. It will.